Okay, good evening. Welcome to the Unbroken Channel's Down But Out podcast, episode 8. Yeah, I think we're at episode 8 now already. Tonight, our spotlight guest is the nut job himself, the creator of the nickname. It's Trevor Bygate. Evening, Trev.
Evening, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, nice to see you.
Good evening, buddy.
Yeah, it's nice to see you both. It's been a while since Vegas.
It has. It's been too long, isn't it? We need to have I think we need to have a bit of a meet at some point. We need to find somewhere just to get together and have a blowout. I think everybody needs it.
Yeah, it'd be a good idea to sort of jack something up, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I think so. I think you should
somewhere near the seaside, not too far. Bournemouth, maybe. I've even got the pool up in the garden.
Too far from the seaside either, is it?
I've got a tent with built-in lights. That'll do.
Yeah, nice.
Oh, yeah, that'll do. Yeah,
that's all good. So tonight, obviously, Trev's going to be our special guest. Trev also has a podcast. It's the Nut Job podcast, Chasing the Light, and I will drop a link to that in the description of this. Go check it out. It's very, very good, very moving, and he's had some brilliant guests on there so far. So, Trev, if you want to just start by telling us about yourself and how you started your military career.
Yeah. So, my name's Trev. I didn't want to join the army at first. When I was a kid, I wanted to be a professional footballer. But there's obviously very little kids get through to be a professional footballer out of the millions that try. I did actually have a couple of weeks trial at Newcastle United though when I was 15. When the manager was Bald Eagle. What's he called?
Jim Smith.
Jim Smith. That was it.
You've probably dodged a bullet, mate.
Yeah. So, and then I left school, went to college to do a sport and leisure management because I wanted to do sport, and then I ended up getting to the age of 21 but I was married with kids at the age of 21, and then I decided I can't do this. I can't just I've got to do something for security for the family, sort of thing. So I went to the Bishop Auckland careers office, signed up in there, and it was just a big decision, but it didn't seem to phase us at the time until I stepped into Winchester main gates, and then I started the shit myself. And then obviously went to Winchester, did the basic training, Middle Wallop, because I joined the Army Air Corp. I went in as ground crew to start off with. Finished at Middle Wallop, and then my first posting was Watcham in Suffolk. It was Lynx and Gazelle at the time, so I went into where did I go? It was a Lynx and a Gazelle squadron, which was strange, mixed aircraft in the squadron. But I went into 654 squadron, and it was just one day that the OC asked who wants to do a door gunners course, and I was like, I'll do it. I'll do a door gunners course. So yeah, I went off to Middle Wallop and trained to be a rear crewman in a Lynx helicopter. And then I ended up I went to Bosnia as a door gunner in the Lynx. I think that was around about 2000 or 2001 sort of thing. So it was quieting down over there anyway. It was just a case.
That was about the time I was out. I was out in I was in Pristina 2001.
Yeah. Because we were in Butmir camp in Sarajevo.
Oh, okay. Nice.
And then went all over the place. We were just a taxi for a brigadier, really. Because one story, we went to Dubrovnik. Yeah, he had some sort of meetings out there, and we flew him out to Dubrovnik, and we thought we were going to have to fly straight back to Sarajevo and leave him there for the weekend, but he said he wanted us to stay, so we ended up parking the Lynx helicopter in the Dubrovnik airport. We left the GPMG and pistols with the French army that was at the airport, and then we ended up having a hotel for a couple of nights, going skinny dipping in the Adriatic Sea.
Nice.
And then I obviously I come back, and I played a lot of football in the army, and I started to get like knee injuries and stuff like that. So I ruptured the cruciate ligament, had 3 bouts of surgery on that, and then I was back at Watersham, trying to remember because it's some of it you sometimes block it out. But
yeah. Sorry, mate. It's all good.
Yeah, so I finished at Watersham, but I was injured at the time. I had surgery, so they posted me up to 9 Reg, Dishforth. Remember Dishforth? It's just on the A1, just before Lehman.
Yeah.
I went there, but I went there injured, and I hated the fact that I was injured and I couldn't get involved with the squadron's sort of PT and exercises and stuff. And I went on a 9-week rehab program at Catterick, at the regional rehab centre there. And I was on a trampoline and I ruptured my cruciate ligament for the second time in rehab. So I had another 4 surgeries on it. And then I got to a point in my career where I was at Dishforth injured, and I thought I can't do this. And luckily for me, I got offered a job in Germany, and it was just driving a general around. It was being his sort of like sidekick, and so that I sort of like said, well, when I was out there, all I answered to was him. I didn't have a sergeant major, I didn't have an OC or nothing. He was just my direct boss. So yeah, I was there for like 2 years. It was really good. 2 years, family loved it. Chloe came to live with us for a year out there in Germany. She loved it, got her into school and stuff like that. And then I got to a point where I was a corporal at the time, so I wanted to get promoted. And I got told by the staff at Glasgow, the ones that decide who gets promoted and not, and stuff like that. They said, if you want to get promoted, you've got to go back to an active unit. So I forced myself to get fit. I went and did a CFT in Germany, passed that, passed me, it was BPFA then, wasn't it? So,
yeah.
And so after all my surgery and that, I forced myself and they upgraded me. And I went back to Watersham in Suffolk where I first started. But by that time, the Apache helicopter was in Watersham. So I went into a flying squadron just as an Apache. Well, I wasn't even an Apache basic trained. I wasn't even trained on the Apache, and then so I had to go. Normally, when you go to Middle Wallop and do your Apache training, you do Apache basic. You have 12 months later, you do Apache advanced, and 12 months later, you do Apache landing point commander. But because I was already a corporal, which meant I should be an Apache landing point commander, I did everything within 6 weeks. I did basic. 2 weeks later, I did advanced. 2 weeks later, I did landing point command, Apache ALPC, and then about 12 months later, I was an assessor, so I was assessing and training all the lads on the Apache. So that was good, learning how to teaching them how to put rockets and missiles on and fill up the 30mm cannon and stuff like that.
Can I just ask you as well, Trev? So you got yourself fit, yeah?
Well, I say it was fit. I sort of pushed myself to make sure I was fit.
But did you do that? Did you have advice from anybody who were doing that, or did you just go, do you know what? I'm going to do this? Because the reason I ask is you said that obviously you re-injured your knee while on a rehab course.
Yeah.
Okay, like you, I've got form there. It happened to me. And I remember, and I don't know if it would have been the same then, but I remember. What annoyed me is when I was in pain and not wanting to push, you were almost sort of told the pain's all in your head. You need to push through it. So did you find, do you think you were pushed a bit too hard during that rehab? Or was it just bad luck?
I think it was just bad luck because I was on do you know them little round trampolines you used to do and you used to bounce on them on your foot? And I was bouncing on it on one leg just to get your stability. And when I bounced it on my leg that I was getting rehab on, my knee just gave way. So the doctors, the colonel cortisone injection, boom, straight in my knee, and he's like, "Oh, you'll need surgery again." So I was like, "Oh, cheers for that," sort of thing. But, yeah, I had the surgery, but in Germany, I had nobody pushing me. I had to push myself. So, and because I wanted to be fit going back to a unit, I just organised a CFT with one of the PTIs in Germany, and he took us out. He got me through it, and then I did the mile and a half, but I did it on a running machine, and then the press ups and sit ups as well, and stuff. And then I got fully fit, so I came back to Wattersham, which I'm pleased I did. I mean, what did I do when I got back to Wattersham? So I went into a flying squadron, did Army Apache courses and so on and so forth. And then I got promoted, to sergeant, and I got the job as an ammo sergeant in the flying squadron. So I was in charge of all of the ammunition and stuff like that, and the training of the ground crew and looking after them, which was good to have, because you had a lot of responsibility of all of your lads, looking after their welfare and stuff like that. Sort of thrived on that. Then because the Apache does a lot of exercises out in America, so I went out to America twice, to Arizona, which is really, really, the first time was amazing, being in Arizona with the Apache, and they fly out to the desert and they do dust land and stuff like that. And you get involved in all that, setting up the NATO T and landing points, and so that was really good. Come back from America, then I went straight out to Afghan with the 662 squadron, I think it was. And luckily it was my squadron that Prince Harry was in when we were there. So obviously he did all the pre-deployment training with us before we went, flew out with us to Afghan. And we'd only been out there a few days before, because normally when you go out to Afghan, you do like your Rangers, you do some firing to zero your weapon, and then you get given your weapon. And before we'd even zeroed our weapon and got given rounds, that was when the Battle of Bastion happened. So it was when the Taliban got through the checkpoints, because Bastion, it had loads of different checkpoints all the way around the perimeter, but for some, I think they got a bit slack, and it was only manned every other checkpoint. So the Taliban had been probably watching this for quite a while, and then they decided this is our opportunity, and they did get on, and they destroyed 7 American Harriers, Osprey. They killed the CEO of the Osprey unit, killed a Marine. And then I could just remember watching the Apaches and the Cobras circling around, and you could see the fire, the rain of rounds firing down, which was pretty interesting. And it was a good tour. Harry was there. We got a fruitcake off him. Oh, I don't know where he got it from. I think
did he get you did he get you fruit? Did he get you an ice cream from that ice cream van that he ran off to?
I know. Yeah. Me too. So he was out there. I think it was Princess Anna. Someone must have sent him the fruitcake. But he brought it over and gave it to us, sort of thing. And then when did I come back? So I come back. I was there for Christmas and New Year in Afghan, which was great. We got loads of welfare parcels sent out, and that. I was lucky enough to open a welfare parcel, and it had a mini bottle of wine in it. And obviously you can't drink out there, but the ground support flight commander said to me, he says, "Oh, I was the oldest ground crew out there." He says, "Oh, I'll let you have it like that." So I had this little mini bottle of wine. I thought I was away with the fairies.
I'm surprised you share. I'm surprised you tell anybody or share anybody your tight gift.
No, I didn't share it. And then I came back from Afghan in February. I think it was February. And then just went back to normal work. Obviously, you have a bit of time off, don't you, from coming back from op tours and stuff like that, because we stopped off at Cyprus for 24 hours decompression.
Yeah, because 24 hours is enough time to decompress. Yeah.
Yeah. I had one bottle of wine. I was absolutely mortal. on one bottle of wine in Cyprus at Bloodhound Camp. But yeah, and I was ill on the back of the bus on the way to the next flight to come home. I think, but yeah, it was nice to be met by the family when we got back in the squadron in the hangar. And then I just went back to normal work after that. I'm trying to think about, because sometimes I have memory blanks where I'm trying to think back. So I went back out to another. I went on another exercise to America, to Arizona, and I thought, yeah, I went out as a sergeant this time, so I was looking after all of the ammunition and stuff. And it's quite not a stressful job, but it had a lot of pressure on you because you were accounting for every round and every rocket and every missile, and you were trusting the lads to account for it when it's coming off the aircraft and coming on. And if the aircraft goes off and doesn't fire it all, you've got to make sure everything comes out of that aircraft, because you don't want an Apache having an ND with a 30mm. So, which did happen in Afghan at one point, I've been told. So yeah, I was out in America, doing my bit there as the ammo sergeant, and then obviously one night while I was in Arizona, I was FaceTime on my wife Kerry. We used to because we were on this little American Air Force base in Gila Bend, it was called, and it was basically an emergency sort of camp for any American aircraft, because the ranges out there for the aircraft is in Arizona desert is massive, and if any of the aircraft have any technical issues, they can come and land at Gila Bend to be repaired. Right. We had a couple of warthogs park up when we were on there. We weren't allowed to take pictures of them or anything like that. So yeah, but we stayed in accommodation, and I was FaceTiming my wife, and there was one time I was FaceTiming and the house phone started to ring, and she said, "Oh, leave it." And I said, "Oh, get it. It could be anybody. It could be anybody." And she answered the phone while I was still FaceTiming, and like, "I am you now, speaking to you," sort of thing. And then she just started to get tearful, and she hung up on me, sort of thing. And I didn't know what was wrong. I was panicking and stuff like that. And then so I got back in touch with her eventually after about 10 minutes. And she was in tears, and she just said, "It's Chloe." And I said, "Oh, what's happened to her?" Thinking that she's going to say she's broke her leg or she's in hospital or something like that. To hear my wife say that Chloe's dead was it was traumatic. It was life changing for me. To think like, I'm like 7,500 miles away from home, not being able to do anything, and not be there for her. I ran out of my room to knock on the sergeant major's door, and I told him what had happened, and it was a big rush to get me back home. So the army did a few things a little bit wrong. When anything happens with anybody abroad, they normally use JCCC, which is the compassion. They didn't use that, and they should have. So they just all that happened to me was they took me to Phoenix and just stuck me on a flight to Heathrow, and I was stuck on a flight on my own for like nearly 9 hours after just being told that Chloe had been found, obviously not alive, sort of thing. And
that's a lot, and that's why JCCC's there, so you can get that support at point of trauma, and they can help you through it. So I
was told I was going to have a chaperone on the flight. Somebody will come back with me, and I never did. And then Chloe lived in Haverfordwest. She was in a flat because she was 19 at the time, and then I got to Heathrow. When I got off the flight, I was expecting the regimental welfare to be there, support me, take me down to Haverfordwest, support me in what I had needed to do down there and stuff like that. But the welfare spent about literally 2 minutes with me. Am I all right? Right, here you are. There's a driver for you. the driver will drop you off in Haverfordwest. So I spent 4.5 hours from Heathrow to Southwest Wales with a couple of young lads, one driving us, the music playing in the car. And when I got to Haverfordwest, they just dropped me off at the side of the road, and that was it. Left us. No welfare support, no nothing, sort of thing. So obviously, at the time I was numb. I didn't know where I was or what I was doing, so I was just going with the flow. If you know what I mean, I was floating. And I look at it this way. I had to go. Well, actually, it was my mum and dad. My mum and dad lived up here in Newton Aycliffe, up north in Newton Aycliffe, and they were the ones that took the call that Chloe had been found dead. And they were the ones that called my wife. My wife's not Chloe's mum. Chloe's mum's my first wife, but my mum and dad drove for 8 hours from Newton Aycliffe, 60-odd-year-old, drive all the way down to the hospital to ID Chloe's body because her mum wouldn't do it, sort of thing. So, and that's what happened. And then I come back, and I had to go to the hospital. I wanted to go to the hospital to see her, and that's what I did. I went to see her. Obviously, seeing your own child lifeless, lying there in a bed with a little blanket over her is enough to stick with you for the rest of your life, which it does with me. And I always say to somebody, I always say to people, if you don't understand what it exactly is, I always say sit with your eyes closed for 30 seconds, yeah. And when you wake up, your child's not there anymore, and try and think like that your child that's there when you wake up, that child's gone, and you'll never see that child again. And that's how I can only give people a little example of how it feels, sort of thing. So yeah, I mean, I spent 3.5 months off work. I mean, it was difficult. I had to organise Chloe's funeral because her mum wasn't very good at organising stuff. So I organised the funeral, everything. The coroner, the inquest. I went to the inquest quite a few months later because it takes a while. And yeah, it was hard to hear the guy in the inquest. His exact words were, Chloe Bygate did kill herself. I sat there. I went in my uniform so I could look a little bit more sort of like professional sort of thing. So I went to the inquest. I managed to get Chloe's mobile phone and her iPod, which getting a phone was her iPod was really pleasing because she had like 800 odd songs on there, and I would play the songs that she listened to on a playlist. And like I said, I was off for 3.5 months. I had no one visit me from the army to see how I was, which wasn't ideal because you're supposed to get Wismiss visits every week, every so many weeks or so many days. You're supposed to get Wismiss visits, which I never did. And then eventually I went in to see the OC, and we just got a new OC. He was South African. Not that it matters, but he was South African. And I said to him, I says, I want to come back to work. I want to throw myself back into work and try and keep my mind off things, sort of thing. And I did. And I just kept myself busy. And I went on exercises up to Otterburn, what a cold place Otterburn is. So I went on exercises, come back off exercise, but I was having a hard time with my own mental health at the time, and it was affecting my marriage, and so on and so forth. So the squadron was supposed to go to Germany on exercise, and I had to go to do you know DCMH is? It's like the mental health side of military.
Yeah.
And I seen a counsellor, psychologist for 4 years, And then they came up with a care plan. And when I was at the care plan, the psychiatrist said that I wasn't allowed to go to Germany on exercise. And it didn't, I don't think it went fitted well with the OC. And it was only a couple of weeks later, I got called into the OC's office and he said, well, you've done such a good job. Glasgow are moving you early. So you've done such a good job as the ammo sergeant, they're going to move you early. And I said, what do you mean? He says, oh yeah, you're going into the intelligence job in RHQ. So there's not what I could have done about it. It was basically making the mind up. The one, because I was non-deployable, I felt as though I was pushed out. And I went into the intelligence job. But while I was doing this, I took a bit of charity work. So I thought, how can I got involved in like Child Bereavement UK, SOBS, which is Survivors of Bereavement by Suicide, and I just thought I wanted to give back on the Legion as well, because actually the Legion were amazing for me. They stepped in where the Army failed to support us. They had welfare come round my house. They organised 2 poppy breaks for the family. We went away on holiday, like a couple of holidays. I wanted to do a bit of fundraising, so I went. I cycled from one side of the country to the other. That was the first bit. Then I did the Brighton Marathon, and then 2 weeks later I did the London Marathon. Then I did the Great North Run for the Legion, and then I just kept going. And the last couple of events I did was I did a 62-mile ultramarathon for Survivors of Bereavement by Suicide. And 2 weeks later, I did the Great North Run. And then about 2 days later, my body just gave in. I think all of the last so many months and sort of like a couple of years after Chloe had passed away, my body just gave up.
Not dealing with it psychologically, or
it was the issue I had. The psychologist said that you've delayed your grief. You've had your mind on something else. Potentially, you should have been. Not should have, because there's no right or wrong way. There's no real way of doing it.
There's not a right or wrong way to grieve, but
yeah,
you were not given the support you needed to process. You were failed. You were failed by your unit. That's disgusting. I've been sat here listening to you, mate, and it's making me angry.
Yeah, I didn't get any guidance of where I should be and what I should be doing, and the hardest thing was for me is to be put in the intelligence job, and there was no intelligence officer at the time, so I was in a little office on my own for months and months, and I festered away, and things were playing on my mind because I didn't have anyone to talk to hardly. I was in these 4 walls, and then unfortunately, we had a young medic on camp at Watch, and he took his own life a couple of years after Chloe. And the colonel come in and he says, "Oh, I just want to let you know, because of Chloe and the links and stuff like that, this is what's happened." And I thought, I've not been. I said to myself, I've not been treated right, so I want to do something to change it. So I wanted to transfer to the Army Welfare Service. So I went away. Actually, I had to go through a really hard selection process and interviews, and I think they were a little bit dubious about letting me on the course because I was actually suffering at the time. But I did get accepted on the course, and it was a 9-month course, and I did 8 months of it, and I couldn't do any more. I actually came off the course after 8 months. But before I went on that course, I was in that intelligence role for about 6 months, and then my psychologist came on to camp, and they had like a care plan with a CO, the Padre, the OC, welfare, and my psychologist, and they all sat round and agreed that I shouldn't be in the intelligence job. I need to be moved. I need to be moved back to a flying squadron, and they all agreed that I would be moved. So from that day, they agreed that I should be moved. I sat in that same job for like 12 months in the same place, even though they said I should have been moved. So But luckily for me, I got through the interview. Did the course, which was really powerful course, because you're learning how to sort of like help people with anything to do with welfare. People's bereavements, people's money problems, support marriage problems. But at the end of the day, it all got a bit too much for me, trying to deal with my own demons and trying to help other people. So I came back to Upsham. And where did they put me when I come back? Into an intelligence job in a flying squadron in a little office on my own. And I just flipped. I just flipped. I walked out of my office. I went straight to the med centre. The doctor seen me. He put me on. You've heard of metazapine?
Yeah, absolutely knocks you out.
Yeah, and I got put on metazapine, and it was like somebody had injected something into me that it made you feel superhuman. It made me feel superhuman. It made me like, but I flipped, and then I did take my life at one point, and so they put me in I went to Peterborough to the Edith Cavell Hospital in the psychiatric ward, and I spent 2 weeks in there. And obviously looking at some of the other people that were in there, I was like, I shouldn't be in here. But there was a section of it was just for military, so I went into the military bit. It was only the bedrooms that were for military, and there was a TV, but you still ate with all of the other patients and stuff. And from that day on, I never went back to work in the army. I was P0, which was wounded, sick, and injured at home permanently. And I must have spent about, a rough guess, I must have spent about 9-10 months at home before I got called in, and I had to sit with the guy, the colonel who does the med board, and told him my feelings towards the army. I got really angry towards the army at the end of the lack of support and the treatment that I didn't receive and should have received, and people not really telling the truth. Especially when someone said to me, the OC at the time said to me, Glasgow have said you've done such a good job, they're going to move you early. And I'm like, Glasgow don't ring up and say that. They wouldn't have known that, because Glasgow's in Glasgow. I'm in Washington. They're not monitoring what I'm doing.
They were just trying to move the problem rather than actually dealing with it and giving you support.
It's a well-known fact, and as harsh as this sounds, and especially under your circumstances, Trev,
yeah.
But families to the armed forces, the army in particular, are excess baggage.
Yeah,
that's all families are. If it causes an issue with you doing your job, they are quite happy to move you somewhere else.
Yeah,
pass it on to somewhere else.
Yeah,
and the way you were treated, mate, that's out of fucking order.
It's outrageous. Actually outrageous.
I'm the same as you. I'm raging at this.
The hardest thing is that if the army had treated me how they should have treated me and give me the welfare and care that I should have had, I might have been in a better place. But the anger that I built up towards the army, that overtook my grief. The anger built up and it overtook the way I was thinking. I should have been grieving for my own child. I should have been thinking about it, but I wasn't. I was angry at the army. I was agitated in everything I did, and it got in the way of my marriage and my kids. I've got 2 other kids that live with me, and they've seen me go through hell and pop medication after medication and stuff like that. I mean, would I say I'm in a better place now? No, because as you know, you've seen on social media, I'm going to do the CBT, which I've got 12 sessions with Walking with Wounded, which is really good. But I still don't think I don't feel any further forward than the 30th of April 2014 when Chloe died. Honest to God, that's my honest to God's truth. I've got a good job, and I did 2.5 years in the border force, but even in the border force, I had 2 weeks off because of the way it was affecting us and stuff like that. And then
do you mind me asking why Chloe committed suicide?
When she was
young,
young,
don't want to talk about it, but
when she was younger, she had her own. When they moved from here, they used to live around the corner from. And then my first wife moved to Haverfordwest, which basically like 6 hours from here.
Yeah, I'm from Pembroke.
Yeah, and the hardest thing for that was moving so far away took away my parental responsibilities. I didn't have that chance to be a father because, I could only see them in school holidays. And Chloe went there, and she suffered with a divorce. I think she suffered with separation and not having a father figure around to guide her. And like I said, she come to Germany with us because the last 12 months of the schooling, if I remember right, I was told that Jessica, my other daughter, Chloe and some of her friends, Chloe didn't go to school before her exams at school, and I wrote her a letter from Germany. I said, "Oh, look, I want you to go to school, get these exams." So she did. She went into school on the day of the exams, and she passed 4, but she wanted to go to uni, and she needed 5. So I invited her to Germany, and I did. She came to Germany, and she loved it. She flew to Amsterdam airport, picked her up from the airport. But she had self-harmed quite a bit, and a lot of what she went through, I didn't find out until she passed away. She'd been in CAMS. CAMS is the Child and Adolescent Mental Health Services. She'd been under them. I never knew about that because certain people didn't tell me. And so when, she got to a stage in her life, she wasn't an angel herself. She got involved with cannabis. It's quite.
She was a teenager, mate. She was a typical teenager.
And I'm not being funny as well. I'm from that area. I'm from Pembroke Dock.
Yeah.
There's not a lot to do around there.
There's not a lot to do around there. She got involved with cannabis, but then I learned a lot after she died. That I got in because I got a mobile phone after the inquest and it wasn't locked, and I got in it, and I learned that obviously a lot of the kids down there had been sharing tramadol and Valium, so on and so forth. And I think she was just at a point where she wanted to go to uni with her friends. After she finished in Germany, she said, "I want to go back to Haverfordwest, go to uni with my friends." Unfortunately, she was already a year behind her friends, so she didn't get into uni. She wanted to study online. She worked in Holland and Barrett. She got behind a little bit in her rent. So obviously she thought, the money issues that was on top of her and stuff. And, they hadn't heard from her for a little while. And obviously her mum had worried about her, sent the police round to her flat. But she'd put a fridge in front of her front door in the flat. And when the police broke in and stuff like that, she was just lying on the floor in the living room with a pillow and a little blanket over her, and with obviously stick next to her and stuff. And she'd taken an overdose at the time. It's hard. It's hard to. Nobody knows what she was thinking. The only person that knows is her. Sometimes I think it might have been a cry for help. The issue we had was when I did a lot of research, and I went to see the doctors after, I went to see the police, I went to see CAMS. I learned that Chloe was only 6 stone when she died. She'd not been eating properly, and she must have took quite a few paracetamol. But being only 6 stone, her body wasn't strong enough to combat it. If it was somebody like me, a grown man, and I took similar, I might have been able to survive. You might have had kidney issues or whatever it is that you get.
I can tell you from taking lots of tablets and opioids and things like that, it does seriously affect you, the way you eat and how much you eat. And if she was taking stuff like tramadol on a regular basis, which again is highly, highly addictive.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It is going to affect the way she eats and nutrition and stuff like that. And oh man.
So it's when we had the inquest and the coroner's report came back, it's a weird thing to say, but she didn't have anything in her system, didn't have any cannabis or anything in her system, no other drugs. The only thing they found was paracetamol and enough for one Valium pill. That was it. So I think at the time she decided to do what she did and use the Valium to go to sleep and never wake up again. That's something I've got to deal with, and like I said, it's hard because I don't feel I'm really further forward. Sometimes it doesn't feel like it does feel like that, but sometimes I don't come across as it like that because you wear a mask. I've done loads of charity events now. I've run 6 marathons and ultra marathons, cycled all over the country, and I've done this, that, and the other. But I do it all for her. You never do anything for yourself; you do it all for her. But it was only the other week I think I said that for the first time since she passed away, I decided I needed to do something for me, and that was when I reached out to get this CBT because I was sick of the way I was feeling. I can talk to you guys, have fun, have a laugh and stuff like that, but then I'm like Jekyll and Hyde, and it's like I'm like a different person. I could be a grumpy shit. I could be miserable. I can be angry. I can be aggressive. I can be.
Trev, that's not just you, mate. That's all of us in jail. We all have that. We've spoke about this privately. And I know Mick has as well. And we all have moments where we all wear masks, buddy.
Yeah.
And we all need time to ourselves and just to get away from people. And like you said, you need that. You need that time to spend that time alone with Chloe. And we see what you put up on Facebook, and I say we know what you're going through. We'll never know what you're going through, but we know how much you grieve.
Yeah.
And all I can say, mate, is what you do, what you have done is incredible.
Yeah, I'm trying. I'm trying to put a positive spin on it.
That's all you can do, mate.
And you've taken the biggest step. It's what you don't you don't realize it yet, but just that very first step of I need help for me.
Yeah.
That is massive. And I'll say it because I've never heard this before, but the way Chris put it to me last night when he was on about his issues, he explained it like a pint glass.
Yeah.
And over the years, little things get poured into it.
Yeah.
And if you don't empty some of that out, you're just going to hit a point and.
Yeah. That's exactly what it was. It's exactly what it's been like. I got this. We actually learned something very similar on the welfare course, Mick, and it was when you had a person you were dealing with, you would have a big whiteboard, and you would draw up on the whiteboard a big water bucket with a tap on it, and the water would fill up, and when it got too much, it would overflow.
Yeah,
you had to learn when to empty that tap a little bit, and that's where I've got to at the moment. I think Chloe every second of the day. I've got a tattoo on my arm now that I got in Vegas. Most of my passwords have got her name in it. Nearly every password I've got for everything's got her name in it. So every time I do log in and do stuff and bank and all that sort of stuff, I say her name.
So we know how to get into your Grindr account.
Yeah. So, and I want to help other people. So I did my mental health first aid course. I did my assist course, which is applied suicide intervention skills training, which is a really powerful course, but it teaches you a little bit how to deal with someone if they come up to you and say, I'm going to take my own life, sort of thing. I'm doing a 2-month basic level 2 counselling course at the moment. I'm halfway through that. And it's just trying to put a really heavy, traumatic negative in my life and having a positive spin off it.
Yeah, And absolutely, and do not take this the wrong way, right?
Yeah.
Take a step back from it all while you do your CBT, mate. Just look after you, because you're doing exactly what you've explained to us already. You're keeping yourself so busy because you don't want to stop and think. You need to take a break. You know we're here for you. And honestly, I've just finished my first bout of CBT yesterday. I've got to do a 3-month consolidation, then I have the next 12 sessions. But it's been fantastic. It will help you. I cannot tell you it's going to be easy, because it's not. They are going to dig deep. You're going to talk about things you don't want to talk about, but you've got to get there. And I'm sure you will. You're one of the fucking kindest blokes I've ever met, mate.
It's like where I work. Even where I work in HMRC, I've started. For the last 8 months, I do my own tea and talk sessions, and I provide all the coffee and the biscuits, and I invite everybody along, and we talk about anything subject, about anxiety, about bereavement, about career, talk about pressures of work. But like you said, it's when the CBT starts, I think I just want to give it my 100%. And it'll be difficult to do that if I'm doing 10 other different things, sort of thing. So, and that's
just put them on the back burner and concentrate on you, mate. Don't obviously throw them away. Don't forget about them, but just for that time, during them sessions, and obviously the time in between them, the time where you've got to think, they're going to ask you to do things, concentrate on you, mate.
And what you've been through will make you, once you've had time to deal with it properly, it is going to make you will make such a good counsellor.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I
sort of, when I'm talking to people, I lean on my own experience sometimes, but I'm very wary that when you're talking to somebody and you're listening to their issues and stuff like that, I'm not wanting to take other people's problems on. It's I think it's called vicarious trauma, isn't it? Where somebody else can talk about their issues, and then you soak it in. You soak all their issues in, and then you're taking it on, and that's what I say at the end of all my tea and talk sessions. That I ask everybody what they're going to do for self-care, and I speak about confidentiality, and I speak about when you go home, try not to think about what we spoke about, and take a step back and have a wine, have a jog, read.
So basically, what you're saying is you need to take your own advice.
Yeah. Because at some point you'll be talking to somebody who, when you're sat at home having your tea or having a cup of tea when you finish work, you're still thinking of them and their problems in your head and how you can sort them out. So you've now taken their problems on as well as yours. And as harsh as it sounds, when you walk out that door, you've got to leave that problem there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like you said, that's how, and it's a brutal thing to say, you know what I mean? But I think that's how psychologists and people like that deal with it. They don't take the work home, because you couldn't do it because you'd just go mental.
You go mad, wouldn't you?
That was my little issue when I was still serving, and I went to DCMH for like 4.5 years, constant, every month. I sometimes felt that I wouldn't say too close to the psychologist, but we got too involved. She got too involved a little bit in what I was going through, and I sometimes felt as though I was a bit of a guinea pig, because it's not many people in the army who have a child take their own life. And it was, it's very rare. So I'm thinking, was I being a bit of a guinea pig to how to deal with it and see how I would recover, and that was it. Actually, that was one of the worst things, is when I went through my med board and I was medically discharged. That was it. I was discharged from DCMH, and see you later. I went into the NHS, sort of like hit in the ground, and
Can I ask, Trev, with your medical discharge, was it on mental health grounds? First question.
So near the end of my time with a psychologist, they diagnosed me with. They said complex PTSD, but I don't know if it was right or not. I don't know if it's because it's a complex case or so. But so I was medically discharged for complex PTSD, but also I had my knee injury as well, which that went down on me med board as well. So
Good.
the new for medical. So,
and my second question is: have the Army taken responsibility for your PTSD?
So what I did is I obviously left the Army, got loads of advice from the Colonel, which was really nice. The one that did me said on the med board, and he said you need to do this and this. So I went through the war pensions for my knee because I'd done it before 2005, I think it was.
Yeah.
And then for my PTSD, I went through the Armed Forces compensation, and basically the Army was like, "No, your PTSD is nothing to do with us. You know, your daughter took her own life, and that was it," sort of thing. So they washed the hands of it. Then I sort of like what was the word? What my word? I sort of challenged that, and then I heard through the Roberts Legion that you can. Sorry, I'm just going to plug my phone in because I don't want it to die.
That's all right.
So yeah, you can do worse than it's called, and how the Army made it worse. Sorry. Yeah, so I spoke to the Legion and they mentioned worsening. So I've got a tribunal coming up on the 20th of September. And I've got to prove to the people who you sit in front of that, yes, the Army were the big reason, weren't the main why I'm not in the Army anymore and I've got PTSD, because I understand, and I'm not daft, I do understand that death has played a massive part. But I reckon if I was treated right, I was cared for right, and all the things that they did wrong.
The care wasn't put in place for you to have there when you needed it.
You developed those problems due to the lack of care.
Yeah, the anger, the agitation, everything. But not being able to concentrate on my grief because the Army made me angry because of the lack of support and care. That I still think if I was cared for properly, I was supported by welfare, this, that, and the other, I reckon I still would have been serving in the Army. I still would have had a career. I think I'm 90% or 80% certain of that. Obviously, the psychiatrist, the psychologist thought otherwise and stuff. But yeah, it's just it's a tiring journey to be on, and you get fed up sometimes. Sometimes you do think that. I never think of like physically taking my own life because I wouldn't. I've got a wife here and two amazing kids that are amazing. My son's off to uni in September, and Talia's just done year 10, and she's just got loads of really good 7s and 8s, stuff like that. But it does cross your mind sometimes.
Yeah.
You've got active, passive. You've got active and passive suicidal thoughts, and mine are just passive. I just think about it, and I'm thinking, sometimes I think in 10 minutes I could be with Chloe. That's how I think. In 10 minutes I could be back with her.
And it's often the little thoughts that even when and some people won't get it, some people will not get it, but even thoughts when you just sit there and you just think, I wish I wasn't here anymore.
Yeah.
I know. It's we all get that. We all feel that.
The driving down the road, seeing a lorry come the other way or something, and you think, just turn the wheel.
Yeah.
We all.
Yeah, but I know that in my head, you sometimes think it, but you know that Chloe wouldn't want that of me. She's, I do what I do because she inspires me to do what I do to help other people, so other people don't have to go through what she went through. she felt alone and unsupported and didn't have anywhere to turn. And I want to be able to make people realise that they have got somewhere to turn and they have got people to support. And that's what I'm trying to achieve. And I'll get there one day. But
yeah,
like Mick said, get the CBT done and concentrate on that for a bit. So that's sort of where I am at the minute.
You'll smash it.
Yeah, you'll smash it, and it's it's progress, mate. And
yeah,
I want to just take you to Vegas quickly with sport.
Yeah.
You've clearly used sport as a coping mechanism, or I say coping mechanism. You've not really been coping; you've been blocking. But when we were out in Vegas, was it? Forgive me if I get that. Is it Papyrus?
Papyrus, which is prevention of young suicide.
Yeah. Can you just give us can you tell us about, because obviously you do fundraising for them, you're trying to raise awareness for that charity, and again we'll get the link in this as well, just so people can learn more about it.
Yeah, Papyrus is the national charity prevention of young suicide, and because the highest cause of deaths for under 35s is suicide in the UK. You have on average 200 school-aged children take their own life per year. That was 4 a week. On average, 4 a week, kids in school take their own life, and they've been around for quite a few years now. But they've got the Hope Line, which has just actually the last few weeks gone 24 hours, so it's similar to the Samaritans, but it's open to anybody to ring them. It could be me, you, a child, it could be a professional or a doctor. They ring up Hope Line. You do fundraise. Have you seen on the news 3 dads walking?
Yes.
So they're 3 guys who all lost their teenage daughters to suicide, and they decided to walk the length and breadth of the country and take it to Parliament to try and get some form of suicide prevention on the school curriculum. So it'll give the kids the confidence and the bravery to, if they ever feel like that, to come forward to a school teacher or to come forward to a pastoral service within school and say, look, I'm not feeling great. I'm feeling suicidal. And then in the ideal world, so I've done the assist course, which teaches me how to deal with someone who comes up to me and says, I'm feeling suicidal. I would like every teacher, everybody that works in the education department, to have done the assist course. That's Papyrus. They do great. I'm a Papyrus champion, so I do talk to them about the presentation, about what we do, and how they support people. There's loads of resources they've got. They do other presentations. The one I do is a 30-minute presentation. They've got another one that says 90 minutes, and another one that's about 3.5, and it goes into suicide and suicide prevention a lot more deeper. And it was great when we were out in Vegas that I brought the little flag with us, and it was nice to get the picture in front of was it an F-16?
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah.
To get that out there, I wear the wristband every day. I've got another wristband that says "Father of an Angel," and I've wore that ever since she passed away. And I've got about 6 or 7 of them spare just in case it snaps. That's Papyrus. They're really, really good at they've given me a focus. I've met 3 dads walking at Westminster when they finished the main walk for £1 million.
You say the 3 dads walking one. You done a fantastic podcast with them, didn't you?
Was it second episode, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was the second episode. Unfortunately, one of the dads couldn't be there because he was sick. But it was nice it was powerful to hear them talk about losing their child. I know one of the dads had lost a child in COVID, and the issues with COVID and not being able to have so many going to the funeral and stuff like that. But they're mega brave to be able to. I even said to them on the podcast, I said, it's like me talking to them. It's like you talking to me. I said, you've got to allow yourself time to grieve. And they've gone straight in. They're doing hundreds of walks, this, that, and the other. They're probably not really
listen to what you're telling people.
They're probably not thought of grieving properly yet. You know what I mean, sort of thing. So
what you've been talking about today, and listening to those guys on your podcast, I know how much you've inspired them, and how much they've took from you, because they see you. Because I remember one line in particular that you said, you're sort of 14 years into your journey, whereas they're relatively new, and you've got so much more advice and love to give them and pass on to them.
Yeah,
and I know they see you as an inspiration with that. So just remember that, man. Like you said, what you've done is incredible.
Yeah, I remember saying them words. I said, look, you know, Chloe died 9 years ago now, and I said I've managed to build up a sort of like your body armor. I've built up your body armor, and I put pouches on it, and I can lean into each pouch if I want to. You know, if I need to lean into a pouch where it gives me support to talk to other people, I'll go into that. And you know, when I feel tearful, I'll go into a different. And it's all like that, really. You know. And I said you've got to allow yourself something. And I said if you ever need any advice or support or a word, then just give me a shout, sort of thing. Sorry, my phone's just fallen off. I'm looking forward to the CBT. I'm pleased it's working for you, Mick, and that gives me a little bit of confidence that it will work.
It will. You've just got to give yourself to it.
Yeah. I've done CBT before, and believe me, it works.
And try and block out. Try and block out negativity.
Just throw yourself in
from anybody, not just your own thoughts, because that's going to come with time. But you know, be proud of what you're doing. And if people want to stick a boot in, I'm not being funny, but they ain't your friends, mate. I've lost a few people off Facebook because I thought they were my friends, but they almost don't like to see me make progress. And that's the problem with social media. But Trev, thank you so much for coming on and telling your story. It's not an easy one. You've got through it, and thank you.
I think it's important for me to be able to talk about it, because I don't want it to be the elephant in the room. And now I'm hoping that somebody will listen to what I have to say, and they might see a positive in there. And if it helps one person, then I've helped. Then that'll do me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
well done, mate.
But well done. Thank you for listening to the podcast. Like I say, there will be links in the description to sort of various charities, Trev's podcast, where you can go listen to that fantastic podcast with the three dads walking. And we'll throw in some extra support links and stuff as well. But thank you very much, and good night.
Yeah, thank you.